We are streaming to YouTube. Hello, YouTubers who happen to be listening to us right now.
Hey, YouTube.
You're listening to the pleasant baritone of Mr. Orange Guy.
Oh, yeah.
Here on the Quiet Storm.
Oh, man. Did I tell you I was thinking of doing a late night stream called the Quiet Lightning Storm, where I would play R&B and play Ad Nauseam really late at night?
That is
all right.
Fantastic.
So we should now be officially broadcasting everywhere. Everyone should be able to hear us. I would like confirmation of this, if possible.
Yeah.
Because, you know.
I have confirmation that YouTube can hear us.
Good.
See if the other one can hear us.
Okay.
I forgot the word Twitch.
Other one. You hear that, YouTube?
Yeah.
He favors you more than Twitch.
Are we good? Everybody's listening to everybody?
Everybody got it.
You guys are wonderful. Fantastic. Here we go. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Magic Mics. We are now proudly sponsored by our Patreon supporters and CoolStuffInc.com, where you can find cool stuff in stock every day. I am Evan Irwin, and we get started as we do each and every week by introducing my two co-hosts, Aaron Campbell.
Hi.
Ruben Bressler.
Oh, hi. How are you?
Hey, buddy. Welcome back.
Thank you. I have shorter hair this week. Did I have my haircut last week?
Maybe.
I don't remember. I think I had my hat on last week, actually. But yeah, I was getting a little scraggly, getting a little long in the tooth with the haircut. But this week, I think I've cleaned up a little bit nicer. Not as nice as Aaron with the what was it? The scrunch and bunch.
Oh my God, we got an entire lesson on the scrunch. And
on
the plop, there's something called a plop, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
And hair
so
care.
I gave so for those of you who those of the patrons who get to see our pre-show, I did a little tutorial on curly hair, and so I taught the boys about squish and condish and plopping and all the things that go into curly hair. So.
Fair enough. So.
And Ruben, I like your red shirt today.
Thank you. As you know, it is International Women's Day. And so I'm wearing red in solidarity. Aaron, thank you for being with us, even though you're well within your right to strike and not join us this evening. But we appreciate your presence here as a working woman, as the working woman on the podcast.
As the working woman, you know, it takes a village. So,
it really does to keep these two in line. I mean, geez.
I know, right? So. We are going to, as we're able to, we're going to hang out on Sunday with all of our patrons. So for those who sponsor us on Patreon.com at $20 or higher, you get yourself ready at 10 o'clock Eastern Standard. I'm sorry, Europeans, it's really the only time we can make it work. But 10 o'clock Eastern Standard, we will be online. We will talk to you guys. It'll be super cool. That's happening Sunday. Unfortunately, because next week is Gamma, I will be in Vegas. I will be next to Ruben. And we tried to make this work last time, and it was kind of a ridiculous hot mess.
It was
rough. So if you recall, we streamed from Athena's streaming facility at the Ifro house, and it did not pan out well. We tried our darndest, and it did not work. So we're just gonna eschew the whole trying part of it. But we're gonna do our Patreon hangout hopefully in lieu of that.
Right. I mean, we want to make sure we got that in there. Our patrons are fantastic, and we love them all.
Thank you.
And because we're sponsored by CoolStuffInc.com, we're able to give away stuff, which is awesome. So I'm going to put in the chat some giveaway links. What we're going to give away, we're going to give a full set of Ultra Pro supplies featuring the new Snapcaster Mage. That includes the deck box and the playmat and sleeves. We're going to give that somebody for free. As soon as it comes out. I think it comes out the same day the set does, so this will be March 17th. But I will, Cool Stuff Inc. will send you these things, and it will be great. And I've put the link into both of the chats. You guys have different ways to enter. And last week there were over 900 entries into the Cavern of Souls,
which is crazy.
Which is great. And as a result, we did give that away, and I was able to talk to the person who won them, and I'm going to send it to them next Friday, and it's going to be great.
So just to be clear. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, do you recall who was the winner?
Yeah.
I can find it in your Twitter if I need to.
Right.
I don't recall the
gentleman's name. I don't recall right offhand.
All right, I'll get it.
Evan.
I'll get it while you guys say other things. Hold on.
You have to at least remember the winner's name.
I got it. Say other things.
All right.
So just to be clear, so this package that we're offering this week, that is a deck box, playmat, and sleeves, yeah?
Yes. Featuring the new Modern Masters Snapcaster. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that'll be cool, and you guys get it totally for free. So thank you, coolstuffinc.com.
Thank you.
All right, so Modern Masters was in like full swing last week. All right, so when we were broadcasting, we had our spoiler, we had scavenging news. It was great. At the same time, I guess about an hour later, Wedge showed up with Voice of Resurgence, and we're like, oh my God, is that voice for real? And Liliana had just come out that morning, but Wizards wasn't done. Wizards was not finished with us because our bodies were not ready. Just
For the jelly?
for just this 1, 2, 3. It was Blood Moon. Oh my God, Blood Moon. And then it was Cavern of Souls. Oh my God, Cavern of Souls at Mythic. Yet Damnation is rare. And then the Piece de Resistance, which was Tarmogoyf. They put Tarmogoyf in this thing alongside everything else.
I went on record last week saying I'd be surprised if they did it, not just because it's, it's still $100 some card,
bucks.
But they've put it in every Modern Masters thus far. So I thought that they were like, all right, we can let Liliana and Snapcaster Mage have their headline day, and like that's fine. Nope, not done juicing it. Still need Tarmogoyf in the set, which full credit to them. This is just insane how much value there is. It seems in every pack. I haven't done the math. On #done the math on what the math looks like now that everything's been released.
What I had read was you have a 22% chance of getting something worth $10 or more. Okay. However, once you're in that 22%, the average value of those cards is like $52.
Right.
Wow.
So if you can get that 1 out of 5, and we're not even talking about the cool that you're going to get a foil in every pack, or you get some sweet uncommons like Path or Inquisition, but like you're in that 1 out of 5 hot money rare action, like you're sitting pretty.
Even if you're not in the money rare action, they got uncommon Path, uncommon Inquisition, uncommon Serum Visions, uncommon Might of Old Krosa in this set. And other things like compulsive research and harmonize are nothing to laugh at.
I love that.
So
Serum Visions.
The new Serum Visions is creepy as Jin Gitaxias himself.
That's right.
So there's some good value in this set. And I'm really excited to draft it. And the most exciting part, honestly, for me, is the rarity shifts at this point. Like, I'm not even a Pauper guy.
You know where I was going. Look, Wizards had
I know you were going there. Before we get to the Pauper shifts down to common, I just want to say Arachnus Spinner at uncommon is hilarious. Because that is going to be the most absurd, it's going to lead to the most absurd draft photos of like the guy that got 2 uncommon Arachnus Spinners and then drafted 7 Arachnus Webs or whatever. And it's going to be pretty funny.
Oh, Lord God. Okay.
What a tangled web we weave.
Yeah.
Wow. So, well, look, now, when Wizards gave 2 of the spoilers to Alex for his Pauper article on Gathering Magic, I was like, okay, sweet. That's like, this is where we're at, right? Magma Jet and, help me here, the one that gives mana. What's her name?
Burning Tree Emissary?
Burning Tree Emissary. Thank you very much. So, those 2... awesome, fantastic Pauper cards, and then Wizards just kind of slipped this right down there. Didn't say nothing. Didn't get anybody. Thunderous Wrath at common, ladies and gentlemen. 1 red, 5 damage. Burn was already a deck. Aggro was already a thing. Holy crap! This is one of the most powerful downshifts I've seen, I guess, since Magma Jet or Burning Tree Emissary. Because here we are.
Yeah,
wow.
It's pretty insane. It's a pretty insane card to put at common. I mean, first of all, it lets you play Brainstorm in Pauper now. Like Brainstorm wasn't even that good in Pauper, from what I understand.
It's true.
Because the shuffle effects are just not fetch lands, right? You had to play like Terramorphic Expanse if you wanted to play your Brainstorms in your Delver deck. Right. A lot better now, for sure. Yeah, that's a big deal.
And you still will, but there were some other, there was other trap cards or other miracle cards. But definitely Thunderous Wrath was like, I just can't, I don't know why they wouldn't have given that to, the Pauper guy, Alex, to write about, because that's a big deal. That's a huge downshift. So yeah, Pauper kind of lost the crap on that one. And rightfully so, because it's literally just going to change the format as soon as it hit. That's fantastic. However, what happens with these master sets, as we found, is that there is a pendulum, and it swings back, and you see everything that they printed. Awesome. Prices go down. Things get more affordable. Okay, that's sweet. What they didn't print kind of gets a huge spotlight on it. Because Karn is now spiking. Mishra's Bauble ain't getting any cheaper. Noble Hierarch is spiking. Apparently, everybody just bought out Fulminator Mages in the past day or so. They're like $30 a pop. Can't find them anywhere else on the internet. So, you know, that's weird because, again, on Monday, the first time they've ever done this, we're going to have the follow-up ban and restricted announcement. This is where they have the chance to change something in Standard. They have the chance to change something in Modern, and people are kind of freaking out. I think Mox Opal has a big crosshair on it, and Shaheen Sarani is over there just like with dreams of him and Jace hanging out again, and I'm not sure either of those things are going to happen.
I mean, if you honestly, you should go check out Shaheen's, everything he's written over the past 2 weeks is about how Jace is not only safe but probably healthy to unban. If you follow Shaheen on Twitter and can manage to not have the song in your head that Evan is responsible for about Shaheen. He makes a lot of great arguments about the unbanning of Jace the Mind Sculptor. And I know it's come up in the past, and I know that it's been a thing forever. But honestly, I mean, it's pretty healthy. I mean, in your head, you have this vestigial thought that's like, oh, if they unban Jace, those are $150 and they'll be tough to play. They're down to like 65 now, which I understand that's still expensive, but like, it's not Tarmogoyf expensive.
Through the breach
is
Karn
60. Expensive. Yeah, I was just going to say,
and
that's another card that's blowing up because it wasn't reprinted.
Yeah.
Right. So the other thing about there's a thread on Reddit that was of the 25 most expensive cards in Modern, actually only 10 are being reprinted in Modern Masters 2017. So cards like Karn, Mox Opal, Crucible of Worlds, and Engineered Explosives also not reprinted.
Not there.
Which is weird. And of the 10 most expensive, the only ones that got reprinted were Tarmogoyf, Liliana, Damnation, Snapcaster Mage, Blood Moon, and a bunch of lands. A couple fetch lands and Cavern of Souls.
Sure.
So
I actually think Mox Opal is safe. I kind of had this kind of reminds me of when the dredge ban happened, and I think that Affinity is one of those decks that I feel like the hate keeps it in line. I feel like there's a sort of an ebb and flow that happens with Affinity where people get very comfortable, they board out their Affinity hate, Affinity comes roaring back, but then once people wake up and then put their hate back in, Affinity gets put back to reasonable levels. And I'm of the mindset where I feel like bans should only be done when there's some sort of oppression happening. And, like I said with Dredge, I feel like with Modern, there are just certain, if you're doing like a Venn diagram, there are just certain kinds of decks you should automatically have sideboard hate for, where you should have something against the Tron decks, you should have something against the Graveyard decks, you should have something for the Affinity decks. And I don't feel like Affinity is oppressive. I feel like both it and Lantern Control, which is another card that uses Mox Opal, are both in reasonable numbers. I don't think Mox Opal needs to go. I feel like if the hate wasn't doing its job and Affinity had been here all of these years and was out of control, then I could see it going. But the hate does what it needs to do.
Mox isn't getting banned for Affinity. It's getting banned for the combo decks. So it's going to get banned for the Pure Steel Paladin Shram.
The Cheerios.
Which is not living up to expectations, by the way.
Sure, but it's getting banned for the combo potential, not for the Affinity. And, I mean, also not really for the Lantern Control, but that would be a helpful side effect, I think. I don't think Lantern is healthy for Modern. I think
Lantern is absolutely miserable, and like
I think Affinity's fine for Modern. If it was only Affinity, fine. Mox Opal's good. But I think Lantern isn't good. I mean, I love Lantern. Sure, keep it in the format, but for me personally, for my own personal enjoyment, but in terms of having it be a thing in the format, it's really bad.
I mean,
but the results aren't there, though. Like, I mean, and you can feel a certain way about a deck. I mean, obviously, a lot of people felt that way about Dredge, and so the ban happened. And I feel like I would hate for that to happen to another deck. Like, I'd hate for you. I don't care for Lantern either, but do I feel like the results are there? Do I feel that my likelihood of facing it is high enough to where that card needs to go? I'd hate for you to lose that deck because you enjoy it if it's not putting up numbers. Like, I feel like that needs to be.
I think that the thing about Mox Opal is that it's part of the mental mindset that they had on banning fast mana, right? So they got rid of Chrome Mox, even though it probably wouldn't be terribly offensive more offensive than Mox Opal, right? Mm-hmm. But it's the same issue with Simian Spirit Guide. It may not be overpowering, But how is Simian Spirit Guide and Mox Opal that much more oppressive than Rite of Flame and Seething Song, right? Like that's the issue I'm getting at is that if you're gonna like pick and choose which ones you're getting rid of, how is Mox Opal avoiding the banhammer? That's just my thought.
Right. So ultimately, I do think you have a point in that Wizards has definitely had sort of a war against fast mana. We don't even have Llanowar Elves in Standard anymore, for God's sake.
Right.
However, I think doing something like stopping Cheerios, and I've heard this from others. This is just, I didn't come up with this, but this would be sort of like banning Retract, because Retract is the one card that makes that deck go insane, and it's the one card that you would ban that would not hurt any other deck. Lantern. Right. Ban the stupid Lantern or whatever. Like ban some weird, one of the weird stupid artifacts they run. I guess
would be the Lantern. Yeah.
Then just ban the Lantern and let it go. Because the problem is that when they don't do that, they kind of silently say that they're okay with this being a major part of the format, or certain, an entire strategy that they are okay with, that they're okay promoting, that they're okay on streams, that they're okay seeing in tournaments, that they're okay winning tournaments. And that, if that's okay, that's fine. But like, I think there's certain sort of play patterns and there's certain experiences that they've tried to not give people. I mean, there's a reason they banned Sensei's Divining Top back and Extended, and it was because it was like making the tournaments last super long time, and it was really crazy annoying. And ultimately, the card wasn't busted. It just made everybody miserable. Like, does Lantern, beyond the people who play it, and trust me, I love making my opponents miserable, but that doesn't mean that's good for the game or even tournament Magic.
So they usually don't ban whatever the namesake card is, right? Mm-hmm. Like Second Sunrise is the only one I can think of, where they are like, this is the thing for this one deck and it needs to go. Usually they try to pull, it's more of like a Deathrite Shaman kind of thing, where they just pull the legs out of a couple of different archetypes with one card to try to get it to slow it down, right? Mm-hmm. So let's unban Seething Song and unban Rite of Flame, but then ban Grape Shot and Empty the Warrens and Ignite Memories. Like, are we happy with that? Like, is that a thing we're okay with? If you have to play either Dragon Storm or you have to play like the Ground Rift Niv Magus Elemental deck if you want to play a Storm deck, is that where we want to be? Because that's the other alternative, is you can have all the fast mana that you want. You can do all this Baral, Goblin Electromancer, cast as many spells as you darn well please, and then you have to go off with Storm Entity, right? Like that, you have the really bad win condition at the end of it.
But this is the problem I have with sort of using things that aren't results as a metric. So when you use fun as a metric, and I remember I even asked Aaron Forsyth about this on Twitter. I was like, so I can't have Golgari Grave Troll, but you're fine with Lantern Control being in the format. You're saying that Dredge is an unfun mechanic, but you let this deck exist. You're saying this deck is fun. And when you use something like fun, which is a very subjective concept, to make important decisions, like a banning decision, everybody has different ideas of fun, and they're all valid for the most part. And then we've brought up a lot of other reasons why things get banned, because they feel bad to lose to, where they're not fun or they are fun, and that's a really slippery slope. And I just feel like that shouldn't necessarily be a metric that we're using. I really feel like going more on results and going more on true oppression, not just feeling bad or whatever. I think that should have a little more weight in the decision than I just didn't want to lose to this. And all of the decks that we've happened to name really aren't. Cheerios has sort of crashed and burned for the most part. It's not putting up any results. It had a couple impressive feature matches, but we're not seeing it. Lantern Control is an impressive. Baral Storm is doing well, but not broken well. And I think these things are all, on that metric alone, these things should all be able to exist.
So what I'm saying is, well, first of all, I know that Wizards absolutely uses data. They have plenty of data for Magic Online, and that's great. And there are absolutely thresholds that they will ban something when something reaches a certain percentage of winning. That's a thing. It's happened. Absolutely. However, we are dealing with humans. We're dealing with human nature. And, that, like, what is fun? What play patterns are okay? What sequences are we okay with? I mean, you can see Wizards, they kind of talk about this a little bit. They kind of pepper it throughout all their development and design articles, where they say, well, they wanted this to happen, but, this kept happening, whatever it was, like this play pattern, this combo, this interaction. And if they're not okay with this interaction, that would be essentially removing the fun, adding the fun. Who thinks that's fun? Who thinks it's not fun? Like, they have those conversations, is what I'm trying to say, when they're building the card. So when it gets to the real world and we're all kind of like in it and we're used to it and we're seeing it, and we, either we got to watch it on coverage or we got to play against it, That's a thing that affects a lot of people. So it kind of happens in both areas. It happens like what do they want fun to be in standard? Like, Aetherworks Marvel, clearly they wanted that to be a thing. They felt that was fun. Like literally every white deck plays Gideon for the next 2 years. They were sure that was fun. Okay, whatever. But like, but Emrakul, little too much, Like not just percentages. I really do think it was also there is some amount of emotion involved. That's all I'm saying.
Yes.
There's some amount of emotion, there's some amount of momentum that people feel when things like this kind of come up and they're able to chop things off. But we got to keep moving. However, there was a Magic Online Championship series that happened this past weekend where the casters were all casting from home, which was kind of
a little strange.
I like that, actually.
I'm not saying it was terrible. It was weird.
It was weird. I liked it better too. It was much more esports in that that's how open tournaments of other games are broadcast. I've done a couple of Hearthstone tournaments, for example, where you Skype in and just have your background, and that's sort of your character, right? That's your motif. If you're whatever your background is, it allows you to that's your costume, really. And some folks like Marshall Sutcliffe, in specific, took advantage of that, and through part of the coverage, tapped his Library of Alexandria in his background, which I thought was quite funny. He had a painting of a library behind him, and partway through the coverage, it became tapped, which I thought.
Well, I feel like it also allowed people. I feel like it allowed people to sort of be themselves a little more. Especially if you're the type of person who doesn't necessarily dress up. It's like, I'm under the impression that when they're doing official Wizards coverage, there's somebody who dresses you, and you're wearing clothes that you don't normally wear, and you're in this really enclosed space, and you can only move at certain points, and it's very confining. And especially in this particular situation where they had so many different coverage people who maybe hadn't worked together before, you don't want your first time out with somebody to be really, and scripted, and you could sort of be fast and loose. And I really felt like that created a better atmosphere both for them and for us. Like, they were more laid back, we were more relaxed as well, and it was just a win all around in that regard.
Right. I personally prefer the professional suiting up, broadcast, but that's just part of my upbringing, right? That's what I'm used to doing. I did sports broadcasting a little bit in college, so I'm used to that, as opposed to the more calm, relaxed kind of stuff like what we're doing here, where Erin's character is that she doesn't have a mountain in her background, and Evan is just like, I'm helter skelter. I got 85 things going on. I don't got time to clean up my room, and Ruben has nothing happening behind him except for this lovely blanket.
Are you wearing suspenders?
No, this is my cardigan.
Oh, okay.
Wow. Break out that cardigan, bro.
My Ohio History Day t-shirt.
It's good to be a neighbor. All right.
These are the red clothes that I own. So
the top 4 deck lists of the event.
In any case, yeah.
Funnily enough, Standard, and this has been going on for a while, but Standard has this habit of just being like 2 decks. And here we have 2 Mardu vehicles versus 2 Saheeli Rai combo decks, and it's like, okay, like this is where we're at. I mean, look, and there's the green-black deck that didn't show up, so sometimes there's 3.
Do you know how many articles came out these past couple of days from content providers that had the byline of "Black Green isn't dead," and it was like, oh girl.
Now, to be fair, this is a 16-person tournament, right? All of these small format tournaments never have any innovation. Very, very rarely. The few times.
Expecting any, for what it's worth.
Okay, 1 out of every 4 times Shota shows up with like the Eternal Witness Aether Vial Cryptic Command deck,
I don't know.
right?
I seem to recall the Worlds. I think it was the one that happened at PAX 2 years ago, the one that Seth Manfield won with Abzan. They were playing Modern that time, and that was pretty diverse. Like, some dude showed up with Bogles and Living End, and it was beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, Reed Duke made the finals of Worlds with Boggles one time, just because that was a metagame call. But it's very rare. It doesn't happen a lot that in a 16-person event, be it World Championships, be it the online championships, be it the SCG thing, rest in peace. Not that rest in peace.
Not rest in that.
It's just very rare that there's innovation when you bring this very dense, the worst player in the field had to win a lot of tournaments to get to this tournament. Like, it's not an open format thing where you have to deal with
they
randomness.
Crawled and they scratched and they got there, you know, and ultimately I mean, if Shota's there and Shota shows up with like his ham sandwich and just destroys everybody because it's Shota.
Sometimes.
Yeah, he's like, look, I put pickle on it this time, and just destroys the entire room, and they have nothing they can do. But you know, like, all right, smarter vehicles. It's the Saheeli combo that unfortunately they missed a development, and if it hadn't been Saheeli, it'd probably just been green black. I mean, you know, Saheeli's there because like, oops, you know, Splinter Twin, but otherwise, Mardu Vehicles is kind of like the best thing you can do if you want an aggro deck, and green black is the best thing you can do if you want a mid range deck.
Yeah,
and Saheeli is the best thing you can do if you want a combo deck.
That was really the big complaint, right? Was that it wasn't so much that the coverage was the problem. Like, most of the time Reddit is up in arms about like, oh, the coverage was horrific and everything needs to change and fire everyone. And that wasn't really the problem this time, I don't think.
Sure.
Interest of full disclosure, I watched none of this event, which I think was another problem, in that it was very pro-centric. Like, the only things that I heard about it even being broadcast were from people who've top-aided Pro Tours. So it was not very well advertised.
But it was nice to see the pros promoting themselves for once.
Yeah, and I enjoyed that. I also enjoyed the hashtag crossing the streams aspect, where Patrick Sullivan was able to work alongside Patrick Chapin and Marshall Sutcliffe, and it was super interesting that you could finally have PSulli next to these other stalwarts of Magic the Gathering commentary, not just on the SCG coverage. So I was really happy that was able to be done at the very least.
And shout out to Maria from MTA, who killed in the interview portions. Like, she did an amazing job, and I feel like she has consistently slayed whenever she's been given a chance to be on camera. And I would really, you know, I would hope that one of the takeaways from this weekend is that she gets some more camera time, because she's fantastic.
I do have one issue with a screenshot that I saw, which you brought up, which was when Maria was on camera, and I love that they gave her that platform. Her name was the largest one on top, and then she was interviewing was quite small.
Oh, that was in her tour rider, and that's
That's
right.
fine.
It's right up there with the Graham and M's.
But that's why we read La La Land as Best Picture instead of Moonlight, is because it said La La Land in big text, and then the Best Picture writer was underneath. This is a typeface issue. Where people get very confused, and then Warren Beatty has to turn to Faye Dunaway and be like, I don't know what to do with this envelope.
It's in my contract too, but Evan wouldn't honor it, so my name has to be as big as you guys. But yeah, I tried to get my name bigger, and Evan said no.
Yeah, I am a ruthless negotiator.
In any case, I think that is a real problem. Like, whenever you have someone on camera as the guest, they need to be the focus. And I love what Maria did, and I'm glad that she was a focus, but she's on camera a lot, and her name doesn't need to be the headline.
Yeah, I do think that makes sense.
This isn't the first time they've done this. They do this all the time at Pro Tours too.
And also the Wizards interviews were kind of awkward. Like, I live for Jackie Lee, no questions asked. But they were asking Wizard employees like random questions, like, you know, what is one thing that people don't know about you? And some of them were painfully awkward. Like, I don't know if they were live or if they were pre-recorded and nobody edited them, but there were so many that were just really painful. And no shade to the people involved, but they just weren't as seamless or entertaining as I think some people had hoped.
Sure. I mean, ultimately, I think getting Patrick Sullivan with just commentary, just Patrick Sullivan plus commentary equals fantastic. It's just, the man's a stone cold master. So like, get that boy with almost anybody, and he's, you know, it's like one of those, you know, great athletes, right? He elevates everyone that he works with. Like,
absolutely.
You are a better commentator when you commentate with PSulli. I mean, it's just with the best stuff, whether it's Marshall, whether it's Cedric, whatever. Like, you know, when you're really good, you're so good that you're gonna make the other person just kind of come along with you.
Yeah.
So let's keep going to gathering the townsfolk as we do. Gather the townsfolk, where we talk a little bit about community issues. And so one of the things that was asked on Marrow's blog, which I thought was really interesting, was should there be masterpieces in modern master sets? Because there's no masterpieces. And masterpieces, again, the second I saw them, I wouldn't shut up about them, being like, this is just another rarity, and they're just going to use this thing, and it's a well they're never going to stop coming back to, and who'da thunk it, it's now in every standard set. However, it's not in the modern master sets. So it's weird because like part of it, and this is where like, you know, because I've worked in basically in sort of the Magic industry, if you will, that people will feel like anything I say here is like tainted because like you are for cool stuff and you want to sell the Magic cards. Like, well, no, but like as a Magic player, I like cool Magic cards. So I would like to see cool, unique, super shiny, like lottery win. Like there is something magical. I know it's a little silly, but there's something magical when some little kid opens like a ridiculous $100 masterpiece and just starts flipping his lid. Or his friends are just like, do you know what you just opened? And then there's like this big, you know, it's awesome. That's beautiful. It's wonderful. It helps Wizards because they're selling packs. It helps that kid have an amazing experience. It helps, you know, hardcore dudes when they get to draft a Soul Ring, which is just so sweet because you know how good that feels. That to me is awesome. So I am more than happy with masterpieces in Modern Masters or Eternal Masters or any master sets that they want to go. Like, just go ahead and say it's the 5th rarity. Just take it, own it, enjoy it, and move on. What do you guys feel? Aaron, you go first.
I think you have an opportunity to ask Morrow himself why they're not in here.
Oh, well, certainly.
Morrow?
I mean, he didn't really answer the question, so I was sort of... In any case, so the question was, why are there no masterpieces in Modern Masters? And his response was, that's an interesting question. Let me turn it back on all of you. What would you think of a master set having masterpieces? He didn't really answer the question. And I would actually be really interested to know what he has to say, considering the fact that he's the lead designer.
Sure.
And so I'm of two minds on this. One, yes, it'd be super sweet. And obviously having a master set with masterpieces thematically would make sense. On the other hand, we have a foil in every pack already. We have, earlier we discussed the 22% of packs are just have actual bricks of gold in them. Not to mention the packs that have the foil bricks of gold in them already.
Right.
So, and then, so like the main impetus for masterpieces was to add additional value to sets that don't already have that value in them, I think. More specifically, to have a unique experience with with the cards that are in those packs. So opening a masterpiece in Snaring Bridge in Kaladesh is a much different experience than opening a masterpiece in Snaring Bridge in a Modern Masters that has Ensnaring Bridge in it, or a masterpiece Snapcaster Mage that already has it in it, right? And I know that there are Gear Hulks and things like that that already had masterpiece versions, but I think that it's a different kind of experience when you have the golden ticket kind of thing that they had in Zendikar with the hidden treasures that they had with the masterpieces in the most recent standard sets, with these amalgamation sets with Modern Masters, with Eternal Masters, with so on and so forth. So I'm not huge on putting them in these kind of sets, in putting them into non-standard sets. In their current form of just being like, yep, we're going to pick some really cool cards and put them in the set. They could do something along the lines of, yeah, we're going to make super, super rare dual land masterpieces or, vintage.
Well, they could do that, and we'll actually get to that in a little bit.
Eternal Masters.
So two things. One, the chat is fantastic because they were like, this seems excessive. And I'm like, have you watched anything I've done for 10 years? Like, literally anything. There's no such thing as excessive when it comes to Magic. It's like having too much money, having too much Magic. There's no such thing. If you're getting it all.
Too many cards in your graveyard. I mean, come on.
Just give it to me. I want the cool stuff. So here's the second one. Second super cool idea. Pauper pieces. Come on. Pauper cards.
Pauper piece.
Okay, Pauper pieces are like putting ketchup on steak.
No,
like,
it is a little
the
bit.
president. But look.
Wow.
But seriously, no, I'm just being silly. The point is, no.
That is a well done joke, is what that's.
Thank you. Pauper pieces would be super cool. I'm just saying, like a masterpiece hymn to Turok.
Yeah.
Like there are a masterpiece lightning bolt. Like that's a thing. Like these aren't unreasonable requests in my mind.
I think that those would be cool, and but they wouldn't be the headliners, right? Like, so if you have Masterpiece like Counterspell in your Eternal Masters set, are people really gonna be like, wow, that's a really cool value add that I'm super impressed by? These Masterpiece Dazes are really gonna make me want to buy more boxes. I mean, if it is, then say yes. I think I would be fine with it.
I mean, look, when you have a super cool frame and you got a super cool look and you have brand new artwork that is, unique to that card, there's going to be excitement around it and there's going to be value there. I guess the question is like, what is too much? Is too much too much? I already has a foil in every pack, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, look, then you can certainly get creative with it. But people like big, shiny prizes. And even if you never open one yourself, there's something powerful about that being a possibility. Whether it's sealed product that's, years old that could have foils in it, like, Mercadian Masks. Like, one day I was like, you know what? I'm going to buy some packs of Mercadian Masks because there's foils in there, blah, blah, blah. I got total garbage. It doesn't matter.
Sure.
The possibility is what makes that fascinating.
They did make Ornithopter Masterpiece in the last set. So, maybe people will be like, yeah, Masterpiece, Brainstorm, Daze, Lightning Bolt, Dark Ritual, Llanowar Elf, Hymn to Torok.
Look, I know this
Duress.
is silly. I swear to God, Masterpiece tokens would actually be insane.
Yes, that would be. I'm on board with Masterpiece tokens.
I'm not kidding. It would be a
totally
Masterpiece Squirrel.
Yep, totally on board with Masterpiece Saproling, specifically Saproling, because Wizards of the Coast has the IP on the word Saproling, so you can't have any others. So Saproling, Squirrel, Bear,
Goblin,
Elephant,
Zombie.
Goblin, like that would be. I'd be 100% on board for that. I love that idea.
Sure, I'm just
saying. I think
saying
that's a really good value.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are creative ways of Wizards utilizing the power that they have. Because for me, I always like to think of, look, I love Magic, but Wizards has to make dollars or there's no Magic. So, I like to keep that in mind. Like, what could Wizards do that would make players excited that would also make them money? Well, high five. Masterpiece tokens would be sweet.
Not bad.
Not bad. However, what we talked about a little bit, and this is in Going Infinite, which I did not correctly add the slide thing apparently.
Unbelievable.
No, not Going Infinite. We're going to Pass the Salt. Passing the Salt, because part of this conversation that you touched on just a little bit was the reserve list. Now, if you did not know, the reserve list actually just celebrated its 21st birthday, March 4th, 1996.
The reserve list can drink now. That's fantastic.
Sure can. And on March 4th, 1996, in response to Chronicles and 4th Edition and people flipping out because, oh my God, they're putting these cards from Legends like Killer Bees that are garbage cards that were worth money into Chronicles and or 4th Edition. This has to stop. So Wizards are like, okay, we're going to make this list thing and we're not going to print these anymore. And then later on down the line, Wizards found a loophole. And the loophole was foils. And so for a little while, they started doing Judge foils. Judge foils are reserved cards. Oh, that's really exciting. Okay, that's cool. It's fine. And then Wizards kind of kept on. They kind of creeped on a little bit. I want to say some From the Vault sets might have had one, but I know one that does, and we'll get to that in a second. But what Wizards did in particular was they did a little thing called a dual deck. Now, we know dual decks. Dual decks are still around, which is kind of impressive, to be honest, for as long as they've been around. But Phyrexia versus the Coalition featured Phyrexian Negator right in front. And this is dual decks. These are mass market items. This is stuff you find in Walmart. And this is a reserved list card in a mass market product. What is Wizards doing? Oh my God, could they actually make a foil Black Lotus now? Because they're already putting stuff in mass market. Everyone flips out. Up is down, left is right, cats with dogs. Wizards is like, okay, we're sorry. This was a bad idea. We're going to close this loophole. There's a From the Vault Relics coming out, and in From the Vault Relics are the last of the reserve list cards that we're going to put in there, and that was pretty much the end of it. And so 21 years in, we still have what could possibly be, beyond most of Magic Online's existence in the past 10 years, the biggest mistake Wizards ever made.
Womp womp. Way to bring up the tone of the conversation.
Woo!
Yeah, I mean the reserve list is a rough business. I didn't even realize that it was that old.
Or that you're that
Or
old.
that I'm that old. I mean,
There you
if
go.
the reserve list can drink and buy a gun, then boy howdy. But or go to the casino legally.
That's right.
Yeah, it's the reserve list has always just been this weird, odd thing that they just decided they were going to do, and because they decided they were going to do it, they've been locked into it forever. So what would be the process of getting rid of the reserve list? Do they just, if they just were like, yep, reserve list done, here are 30 reprints of things, like actual dam breaking.
I mean, we've been over this a little bit, and I don't think my whole point of this was A, to talk about sort of the anniversary of it, and B, just kind of remind how the masterpiece thing connected to it, because we've kind of been over this. Ultimately, sure, they would get sued. Wizards would get sued. Maybe they would win that case. Maybe they would pay $0, but they would have a legal fight that they would have to pay for and suffer under, and who knows if they would win it or not. And you know what the safest thing to do is? Just to let it go and let those cards just be on that list and whatever. Okay. Because Magic Digital Next is coming. Oh my God, Magic Digital Next. Could you, can you get Black Lotuses on Magic Digital Next? Absolutely. Can they be foil? Who cares? It's like, whatever. I mean, I'm sure it's going to be sweet. I mean, my hope is that as many cool things as I see Hearthstone doing, just to kind of talk about Digital Next for a second, every time I see something interesting that Hearthstone does, I'm like, man, I wish Wizards just at any point in time would take a hint from that. I just wish they would. Like, again, like the $20 like adventures or whatever, right? Fantastic idea. Would be great in Magic. You'd earn some cards. You'd have a little thematic experience. That would be super cool. Aaron, imagine if they had like a Dredge adventure and you'd be all doing graveyard mechanics and flashbacks and stuff.
Bazaars. Tell me I can have bazaars.
Right. And you know what? You would get a bazaar for playing that adventure and beating it and whatnot, and that would be the coolest thing ever. Right? They could really make...
You're basically nibbling on my ear right now.
That's what's happening. It's a great idea. Like you would actually do a dungeon crawl. And then, once you defeated the tomb of the whatever, you got Tormod's Crypt. And then once you defeated the gravesite of the whatever, you got Golgari Grave Troll. And then the last one would be Bazaar of Baghdad. And that would be a great idea. Hashtag that Hearthstone money.
Hashtag that Hearthstone money, that's right. Hashtag that Hearthstone money.
They are stealing a couple of ideas from Hearthstone. One of them being the online championship series, doing the broadcasting from home, being much more like an esport.
Sure.
Every once in a while they're picking and choosing. The problem is that Magic is so hamstrung by having their pack prices tied to the pack prices of real life cardboard, right? Like a pack of Magic cards is $1 billion.
This absolutely has to be the disconnect. This is the part where they break that and let it go. They have to. It's just
when you said this is the disconnect, I thought that my computer was screwing up again and was like, oh no. But
no.
But yeah, that's the problem, is that a Hearthstone pack is like $1, right? Yeah. Or $2 or whatever. So
fair enough. But either way, the reserve list has a birthday. Everyone hates it. We'll move on.
Happy 21st birthday. You have no friends. Have fun at the bar alone.
Wow.
Sorry, did I take it too far?
Man, you went pretty far on that one. Woo. All right, so Splash Damage is up next, where we talk a little bit about things that are kind of tangentially related to Magic, but aren't Magic. Mark Rosewater, it turns out that they create a deck of playing cards for the Game Developers Conference, which is really interesting. And to make it on the cards, you have to be part of the speaker, sort of the speakers at the event. And they have people fill out, surveys and whatnot when people get done with their talks at the Game Developers Conference, and the person who gets the top-rated talk of the entire convention gets to be the Ace of Spades. Sure enough, there's Mark Rosewater. So Mark Rosewater did 20 years and 20 minutes, I believe it was. And, 20 years, 20 lessons, as he called it.
Right.
And he made his way onto the Ace of Spades, and that's fantastic. So congratulations to Mark.
Yeah, well done.
Aaron is just in a Giggleville over there. Did I say something?
Because I can't look at it without thinking of Reuven. Like, I'm looking at the card. Like, there's a picture of it, and it's got like there's one side of the card that has like, I guess, an explanation of what the card is. And there's a picture of Morrow, and I swear if I look at it from like the right angle, I just see I can't unsee it. I'm sorry.
Oh man. So
all I'm thinking of is the lyrics to Motorhead's Ace of Spades in Mark Rosewater's voice, which I'm going to perform for you now.
You might as well. We have some time.
I would have to Google. I think I'd have to. I might be able to just do it. Dancing with the devil, going through the flow. It's all a game to me. That's the best I can do.
Wow, what just happened?
I played a lot of Tony Hawk Pro Skater, so I know.
Oh my god!
I tried my best. You win some, lose some. Ace of Spades. I played a lot of Tony Hawk Pro Skater on the original.
Oh my god!
Yeah, that's enough of that.
All right, ladies and gentlemen,
I didn't plan that one out. I should have planned that one.
He never said a word about it. So there are some awards called the Spectrum Awards, and these are kind of like the top dog fantasy art awards given out each year. There's a ton of different categories. You know, there's comic book, and there's there's like advertising, and there's world building or whatnot. There's books, all sorts of crazy stuff. However, our own Magic cards actually got into the list, and Magic cards have made it in previous years as well. This year, Broken Concentration and Accursed Witch were both nominated for awards. We'll see if they win them. So congratulations to both of those artists. And it's really cool that when Magic kind of reaches out and is like, hey, we actually make really fantastic artwork for our game, this kind of brings in people that didn't know that kind of thing was happening.
Yeah.
I mean, and if you're... I'm
sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, if you're interested in art, Mike Linneman just posted another art review for Modern Masters 2017 concerning the reprints that had new art. And yeah, there's a lot of depth to Magic art that I think a lot of people either don't see or don't think it's capable of. And if you've ever wanted to know more about that, definitely go check out his posts, because I learn something every time I read them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's not just Magic art, but a lot of other Magic artists, actually.
Yeah.
Dave Palumbo and Brahm, who are two other Magic artists, were given awards as well for their non-Magic art. The Spectrum Awards are a pretty big deal, and I always think it's funny that none of the good cards ever win. But it's nice. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to the artist.
Surgical Extraction won one year.
Okay. All right.
And that artwork was absolutely insane.
Sure.
But Clint Kearley for Broken Concentration, is that correct?
Broken Concentration. Yeah. And it is a great piece of art.
Absolutely. And Wesley Burt for Accursed Witch. Just want to make sure I get their artist names out there. So congratulations to that. Of course, Mike Linneman killing it as usual in his art review at GatheringMagic.com. He does a great job there. But yeah,
in addition to Mike Linneman, Magic Man Sam does a bunch of good art stuff. So you can follow him on Twitter. And
his is so good that the artists themselves watch it. Like Therese Nielsen has gone on record as saying she looks forward to every episode. Titus Lunter is another one who supports him. Like, he has actual, and a lot of times artists don't really like to talk about it, kind of like a lot of pros don't read Magic content because they're busy living that life. A lot of artists don't a lot of times read art content, but there's something about his stuff where even the artists will just read about their own stuff because he's writing about it or he's blogging about it, and he does an excellent job.
Absolutely. And it's kind of it's sort of a niche thing, but it's it's one of those things that when working at Cool Stuff gets me a great amount of perspective for what makes Magic really unique and interesting, because SCG was all Magic all the time. Cool Stuff, it's Magic plus other stuff. So when I see other games that try to grow their community, when I see other games that try to have some sort of video content or have a video content community or have people kind of rally around it, or when there's new content being released for things like what they call the living card games, where those are set releases where you get all the cards in the box and there's no collectability about it, there's no foils or whatever, and all that stuff. And so this really cool, unique sort of niche content about the art of our game is super unique and cool. And it's awesome that we're not only able to call it out, be able to celebrate it, but that, I would not be surprised if there were 2 or even, 3 people who might be doing this. None not quite as good as Sam. He's on top, and that's, that's where you are when you keep making stuff like that as well as he does. But it's really sweet because I see other games and they struggle to get people to give half as much of a crap as we do about Magic. Like they struggle and they claw, they prod, and even these games that sell hundreds of thousands of copies. There's no Ticket to Ride community. You know what I mean? Like there's no.
Well, I guess Ticket to Ride's a little bit different. Ticket to Ride is an in-person game, but I guess it is very. It's just the formation of Magic that makes it easier to do some things and harder to do others. It's tough to be an esport, but it's really easy to create content for, right? Because the community is in front of each other so much. We see other Magic players literally sitting in front of us weekly, at least weekly. Whereas Hearthstone, you may never see another Hearthstone person in your entire life, right? So it's just part of what makes this community so special.
Right, and there are communities around games. I'm not saying there's no communities around any other game but Magic.
No.
I'm saying that those communities often just obviously are dwarfed, but the other times I think they don't have near the breadth, they don't have the amount of interest or the amount of activity,
and they aren't just interconnected either. Like there are big splotches of Ticket to Ride, I'm sure, has like big communities in centers. Like Settlers of Catan has
Settlers
a big
of Catan is a good example of a game that many people play, many people know. People get together and they play it. There's still tournaments and events for it. Why not?
Like I know my local Codenames guys. Like I have my usual group, but it's not like there's this big, expansive network of Codenames, competitive Codenames happening that I'm aware of.
Sure.
Maybe there is. I don't know. If there is, call me. I'm ready to pick up Codenames at like any time.
Right, but I mean, it's really cool to me because the cool stuff sells other card games. Like for example, the Star Wars card game, Star Wars Destiny, with the big chunky dice and the little chits and stuff that you use, little markers and things. Like that game is like blowing up. That game is the players are desperate not only for content, but honestly for product. Like they just haven't made enough, so people can't get it. Force of Will. Do you know Force of Will's actually doing pretty well?
Yeah.
Who'd have thunk it? Force of Will's doing okay. This weird Japanese game that literally is just Magic all over again.
Right.
It's really strange. Like literally every Magic card, they're just making it to a Force of Will card.
Sure.
As they do, because
But you look at you look at the online. You look at Hearthstone. You look at Epic. You look at
Well, now there's Eternal.
What's the other one?
And then there's
Eternal. That's the one.
Yeah.
But they don't have the show up to the store and play in a casual Friday night event. There's no Friday night Epic, right? Like there just isn't that. I know my Hearthstone scene in Vegas. They tried to build that up, and it still happens occasionally, but it's nothing like Magic.
Right.
It's just because Magic comes from this totally different place. It wasn't born on the internet. It was born out of little card shops and comic book stores. And it started with the community and expanded from there as opposed to trying to piece together this other thing, I think.
Fair enough. All right, so we have a few minutes here, and, clearly not the biggest news week.
No.
So if there was any questions that our viewers might have from for Twitch or YouTube, I have both chats up. We're double chatting here. Would be happy to discuss any of them. Because, I think we've kind of talked about the topics. Modern Masters the thing. There's Modern Masters singles. There's Modern Masters sealed.
We had a lot of fun with the Q&A last time we did this a couple months ago. So
right, and and if it's something like maybe you could answer as Mark Rosewater or Helen Bergeau, that'd be really fun. See, I don't have the popular Magic personality.
I was going to say
impersonate.
if you can think of somebody that Evan can impersonate with his. He doesn't have a lot of skills in impersonation, but if you can think of somebody that he
you did a really good Rich Hagen that one day.
Oh, that's true. You were Rich Hagen.
Yeah,
that was the whole thing. That's sort of fallen into the background.
I haven't done that in a while. I could do that. What was the last Magic card you cast? That's interesting. The last
in a game of Magic, I used an ability in my Vampire game that shared a Magic card ability. Called Peak, but that was it.
My last card was Lightning Storm.
Ah, see,
I bet
you sounded like you won that game.
No, I did not actually, and it turned into a massive judge call.
Oh, that was that thing. Yeah,
it was Lightning Storm. So,
ouch! I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. It was the. I guess
I haven't played Magic in a while.
I haven't played Magic in a while, and it was at the pre-release, so. Normally I've been bouncing between pre-releases.
It must have been a cube. Probably like Char, like some red card. That's all I can recall.
Fair enough. So what would we like to see Pauper as an event format? And we've talked a little bit about this.
We've talked about this a few times.
Would
I like to see it? Yeah. Would I like to see it? Yeah. Is it a good idea? Nope.
No, it's.
I disagree. I think that there was recently an event that happened in Italy, I think, that had about 100, 200 people. Like, I think it's cute as like a kind of like an EE level event. Like, you know, when you were doing Eternal Extravaganza, where it's like it's not quite as big as Eternal Weekend. It's certainly not a GP. Like, I think something around that size is fine. Like, do I think it should be a GP format? No. Do I think it should be an open format? No. An RPTQ format? No. Like, I think, but if you find like the right sweet spot for like the size, I'm for it. Like, I think it's fine. I don't think it would affect the economy that much, because I know that was a big criticism that we had, where if it becomes too much of a thing, then the whole purpose is defeated, because those cards will become expensive. But I think if it's, you know, regulated attendance-wise, I'd be for it. There
were a couple stores that used to run Pauper events. Owl Central in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, had some very popular Pauper events. Popular Pauper events. I
know the guys who run that store. They're fantastic.
Yeah, it's great. That's Ken Adams. Shout out to Owl Central. Love that place. That's right. It's a really good store if you're ever in the Harrisburg area, or Lancaster, or wherever they are.
You're in Pennsylvania. I get it.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, there are places that can run them. I mean, this is another one of these formats that it's not for everybody, right? Like, if your store can run Pauper events and you get a lot of people, by all means, go do it. If your store can run Frontier events, if your store can run Commander events, if your store can run Prismatic events, sure, whatever. But I don't think that this is a worldwide phenomenon. I don't think that Pauper should ever be a GP event. I don't think it should ever be a PTQ event. Yeah. Like, that kind of level of thing is not, I just don't think it would work.
I mean, honestly, it's not so much that people couldn't find decks. It's not that people couldn't make it their way to the event. It's not that people wouldn't even want to play in the event. It's that everybody else around the event would not be making as much money as they would doing basically any other format. And again, this is one of those, like, it's kind of that gross business thing shows up, but like, this is kind of where that's the most obvious. Like, limited events are kind of tough, but the vendors there are able to purchase cards or sell supplies. But at Pauper, you're just dealing with like really expensive commons, and that's kind of what you got in terms of, you're probably not going to be buying a lot, you're probably not going to be selling a lot, and it does cost a lot of money to be there, not to mention employees and time and product and all that cool stuff. So that's just from the business side. It doesn't pan out.
Speaking of expensive cards, I want to give a shout out to Card Kingdom, because Card Kingdom, I don't know if they still have them, but they used to do a series of events called Rags to Riches, where they were Pauper tournaments that would have modern staples as prizes. So it used to be Snapcasters. They had some of the I think you could even get like a Legacy Dual Land was one of them, but you know, it gave people a way to get into expensive formats without necessarily paying those prices for them. So you could bring a Pauper deck and win a Pauper tournament and get staples you needed for older formats. And I thought that was really original. It seems like it was really well received. And I think that that's something any store could, if your store is able to run Pauper, I think that's also a great way to cross promote and get people interested in other formats. And that seems like a really great idea.
Apparently they had one just last weekend. So that was fantastic.
Stellar.
So way to go.
I saw a question that I wanted to address, which a couple people asked, which is from people who are real old school fans of Ruben Bressler, which there's like 6 total.
And they're all here.
They're all here. Back when In Contention was a thing, which was my podcast with Matt Cranstuber and Sam Stoddard, currently who works within Wizards of the Coast. This was before he worked at Wizards. I would make insane predictions about bannings and unbannings, and I was right a lot of the percentage of the time.
Were you?
I was. I predicted the unbanning of land tax when everyone was like, "Are you kidding me? Get out of here with your land tax unbanning." I am going to predict, here are my sure to fail 2 things that will probably not happen, but that I would like to see. Ignoring Modern. Standard. I think Scrap Heap Scroungers gotta go.
Random?
It's a weird one, I know. I think Scrap Heap Scrounger is the card that is the problem. Toolcraft Exemplar is like whatever. I mean, that's a problem and all.
Did you know that sees vintage play?
Yeah, I mean, it's a 3/2 for one.
Toolcraft Exemplar. No, Toolcraft Exemplar.
And here's the one that I really care about. Unban Earthcraft already.
You
For the
wanted
love
this
of
forever.
God.
Man, you've said that so many times.
All that is good and holy, unbanned. Go look up what Earthcraft does and tell me that it wouldn't make Legacy more interesting. Right?
I'm
It says
Googling this.
It makes basic lands better. Like,
Yeah.
you really think making infinite squirrels... First of all, let's make infinite squirrels in Legacy great again.
That'd be pretty sweet.
Like an aura that goes on your land and then an enchantment that untaps lands. Like, we really think that that's more broken than show and tell? Like, I've said this for literal half a decade. That Earthcraft has no business being on the banned list anymore. So that's my thought. Anyway, that's the end.
Here was
the end of Ruben Bressler's Throwback Thursday action.
There you go. Well, look, here was a question from Just Kenneth that I thought was really interesting. He said, "Are multicolor sets just better for Magic? RTR, Shards of Alara, all that good stuff." And I don't know if better for Magic is the term. And for what it's worth, I don't even know if multicolor sets are actually the best sets in Magic. You have Innistrad, which is arguably the highest, most lauded set there is, and it's not a multicolor set, it's a thematic set. And I think the more that Wizards does thematic sets, the better they're going to be, the better they are. Like, for example, Amonkhet, the more we're walking like an Egyptian in that set, you know what I'm saying?
I can't believe you went there.
In the 80s, I went there, I did. But the point is...
The Bangles. You were about to say Bojangles?
Yes, and I was like,
chicken biscuits?
That's so
That's
wrong.
That's not it.
Oh.
You're about to say, those chicken biscuits are great, though.
They're fine. They're
no.
But the point is, it's really interesting to me because it feels like a lot of people kind of put those as like sort of the watershed moments, and I think it really provided that resurgence. The Apocalypse block, or the Invasion block rather, needed to happen when it needed to happen. You know, Ravnica needed to happen when it happened, right after Champions. Return to Ravnica was a huge release that everyone got super excited for, and that's sweet. It's going to be difficult, I think, to kind of harness that one more time because we've been to cons, and from, the cons with the wedges and the shards and all that stuff, just the wedges at this point. So I don't know if it's better. I'm thinking like sets like Innistrad, sets like Lorwyn, for example, I thought were incredible sort of movements forward. Yeah, I mean, obviously they had planeswalkers, whatever, but the whole idea, this was a tribal set that was really, a tribal block that was really cool and interesting and fantastic. Like, that's, I think the more thematic or the more resonant the sets are, whether it's whether it's coming across in terms of color identities and mechanics and card abilities, or you're feeling like you're in Innistrad and there's zombies and werewolves and you're fighting all these crazy creatures and stuff, like that to me is where Magic can really harness what's special about it and what's unique about it, and what Wizards has gotten really good at is providing those types of experiences.
I think that you're really onto something with what resonates, and it doesn't have to be top down, and it doesn't have to be bottom up, and it doesn't have to be an original story, and it doesn't have to be an unoriginal story, right? Like Innistrad, we'll start with Innistrad, is all horror tropes. We're all on board with what werewolves are and what vampires are and what all the scary crap is. But Ravnica's brand new. Like, we understand what a city is, but beyond that, this is like guilds and like just very strange, not intuitive. It's not New York City, it's not Los Angeles. We're not building up from any one place. That's sort of like an original place they came from. Zendikar, similarly, like, I get what adventure is. I get that we're crossing a rope bridge and we're trying to capture the idol from the temple before the rolling ball chases after us in Indiana Jones. And like, that's cool too. And those are not necessarily all multicolored. They're not all necessarily all single colored. And then Tempest block was hugely successful because of the storyline, because of the individual characters, because of that was the first real bump in popular culture knowing what Magic is about, because they invented this story that had resonant three-dimensional characters, so many of them, and the storyline just held together so nicely throughout the entire trilogy of the blocks. It doesn't necessarily mean that multicolored sets are more popular. I think that the ability to have cards have multicolored abilities gives the designers more room to design, which I think is good. And that probably leads to more interesting sets when you give your designers more freedom within the framework of whatever the set is. But
Aaron,
I don't think they're inherently better or worse. Personally.
Aaron, do you prefer multicolor or not multicolor sets? I guess is a good way to put it.
In the past, I've preferred multicolored sets. I still believe the Return to Ravnica standard was the best standard I was ever a part of when I was in the game. The fact that it allowed you and everybody to sort of play what they wanted to play. I feel like the metagame had never been so healthy. I really enjoyed all of the cards, and I just have a lot of fond memories of that time. So just based on as long as I've been playing the game and the standards I've actively been a part of, yes, I think it makes for better interface.
I've seen a lot of Magic come and go, and I can definitely say that there is usually a lot more. There's a lot more interest and hype when it comes to multicolors, just kind of by default. Whereas the other sets, like the Innistrads or the Zendikars, those kind of had sort of a growing, building excitement. You know what I mean? Like if you say the next block is going to be multicolor block, you've already got a bunch of people on board. You know what I mean? Like they're ready. Let's do this. Okay, whatever. But like you say Amonkhet, and you're like, okay, and you're like Nicol Bolas, and you're like, okay, and then you're like all these like Egyptian gods, you're like, okay, that's really cool. You know what I mean? Like it kind of builds into a thing like Zendikar. Like what in the world is that? Oh, we're going to be in Indiana Jones. Oh, that's super cool. Like there's ways that they kind of made that. Oh, there's going to be traps. Well, that's super sweet. You know what I mean? Like they build on things where just like horror tropes in Innistrad, which I thought was neat. So there's a question that came back up, and I wanted to cover it quickly, which was. Does there need to be heals in Magic? Now, we've talked about this a little bit.
Are we talking about within competitive Magic, or are we talking about within the game?
I mean,
are we talking about
in competitive as in the show of the game?
And I don't think there need to be heals because a lot of events don't have carpeting, and I wore heels to GP Pittsburgh once, and it was concrete floor, and 8 hours in heels is not...
Just let her go. Just let her go, Evan.
A woman, the woman's making sense. She's in there. Oh.
Okay, you meant like a wrestling guy thing.
Yeah, wrestling term. I like the heels and heels though.
I do like that.
The term heel from professional wrestling is to refer to someone who actively embraces the audience disliking them in order to drive the narrative. Do we need that in Magic the Gathering? The short answer is no. The long answer is more complicated. The short answer being no is because esports and Magic and sports don't necessarily need someone to root against, right? For example, in the NBA right now, you have the Warriors, which are all kind of pretty nice guys. Like they don't do drugs, they don't hurt people. They're just very good and they're very confident, and that's where the people kind of dislike them. Then there's LeBron, who's also very good, and Cleveland. But there's no one you really hate. Meanwhile, in the 80s, there were the bad boy Pistons, and they were the heels, right? You could really just be like, I don't care. I like my team. I root for two teams. I root for my team, and I root for whoever's playing against those damn Pistons because I hate them so much. And that doesn't really exist in the NBA right now. And the NBA was popular during both, right? So do you need it? No. I personally think that Magic would be helped by having people who are heels. The problem is that a lot of the bad guys, quote, from back in the day, turned out to be cheaters during the Wild West days.
Heels can never equal cheaters. And
yes,
so when
that's
heels,
the problem.
Right, and I don't think we want that. And I don't think anybody wants that who has any sort of scope of what's happening to Magic. However, the idea that someone can be like fun to root against, it's tough because here's the other part of it. If you want Wizards to, promote you or pay attention to you, and you're kind of acting like a jerk, you're probably not going to get that attention or that promotion. Like it's just kind of how that's going to work. So some people are like, well, that's the sort of the PC, kind of the homogenizing of all this stuff, and it's not going to, we need people with strong opinions and blah blah. Honestly, right now, and I mean this with absolutely no disrespect, I got all the respect in the world. I honestly think Owen is about as close as we've got right now.
That's
Owen
what you're going to get.
Because
he's so confident. Yeah. He's like, I want to be the best. I'm going to stomp everybody under my foot. And it's great, and I love it all. And Absolutely. He's like the drama center for all of it. And I love that. And PV has done it sometimes, and Efro has done it sometimes. There are a couple, but Owen just like owns it, and I love it. But it's such a different angle.
But that's about as close as we've come,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And it doesn't really exist in other esports either. You don't really have those top echelon guys in StarCraft or League of Legends who are just like, yeah, fight me in real life outside after this game. Like, it doesn't happen.
Nor do those games need that. I mean,
Right, exactly. So no. Could benefit from? Maybe. Personally, I think it would be more interesting television. But we are comparing. We're using a wrestling term, which is drama. It's scripted for something that isn't scripted, and so you can't really do that.
Right, Aaron.
It doesn't exactly translate.
I'm particularly interested in how you see the Owen Turtenwald again. I'm trying not to I'm trying not to bash Owen, because I'm telling you, I think this is great because he puts in the time, he puts in the effort, he gets very good results. He publishes, for example, his entire draft history of the Ether.
Owen's great.
Of the Ether Revolt, Kaladesh drafts that he did, which I thought was fantastic. He knows he's good. That's a good thing. Is this, if you pass the line into what someone call arrogance, is that too far?
I don't think so. I think Ruben hit it on the head where it's a very complex thing. I don't think it's something we can necessarily cover in a Q&A session like this. But the bottom line for me is I feel like the game itself is entertaining enough to where we don't need to manufacture drama and to where we don't need to sort of create scenarios. And I feel like we've demonstrated even on this show that sometimes if you just leave the pros alone long enough, #pros behaving badly, they'll pick on each other. We talked about Joe Lissette versus Jeff Hoogland and Tom Ross versus Jeff Hoogland and Ari Lax versus so-and-so. And I think that's entertaining enough. And
everybody else versus Jeff Hoogland. And
I just feel like it's more entertaining when you don't have to try, and I feel like, wrestling is something that has to sort of try for that. I think if you just threw two guys in a ring and made them fight, it wouldn't be as interesting. And I just don't think, Magic is the type of game or the type of event that needs that to happen. And so, I don't think there's a place for it. I don't think it's bad that there are people who may have those traits necessarily, but I don't think it's something we should be striving for, that we should sort of be cultivating.
Fair enough. So we are going to turn the corner to the finisher. This week, the NHL's expansion team, the Las Vegas Golden Knights, signed the very first player in franchise history, a free agent forward from the Brandon Wheat Kings of the Western Hockey League. These are just like words are just like falling from the sky. What?
It's just a news release.
Brandon Wheat Kings
tagged me in this?
Of the Western Hockey League.
Kings. Let's talk about team names.
Oh my
God.
God.
Wheat Kings.
However, this person was by the name of Reed Duke. #Baywatch. Now, obviously, this Reed Duke is not the same Reed Duke we all know and love in #Baywatch, but that didn't prevent the Twitter mentions of our favorite Peach Gardener from filling up faster than an open net. It also means that #Baywatch is now also #Nightwatch, and we have a new favorite hockey squad. So, Aaron and Ruben, what I want to know is this. What's next for the NHL's Golden Knights now that they have the adoration of Magic players everywhere? Ruben?
Well, for the final home game of the inaugural season for the expansion team in my hometown, the Las Vegas Golden Knights will be giving away 10,000 Reed Duke bobblehead dolls. But instead of the whole head bobbling around on a spring, it'll just be the Reed Duke bowl cut bouncing around on the nugget. Yeah, it'll be a bobble bowl. Bobble bowl night for the first 10,000 to show up.
Nice.
Bobble bowl.
Aaron?
Well, now that the Golden Knights have the dreamiest Magic player on the planet on their side, they'll very easily be able to go through most of the regular season undefeated, meaning they can ID the last dozen or so games to intentionally draw into the playoffs and lock in another top 8.
Yeah.
Smart.
That's how it works, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's how they do it in the National Hockey League.
That's absolutely correct. Well, the biggest development from all of this is that the signing of Reed Duke to the roster means that the team will already have a lead sponsor locked in, Magic Puzzle Quest.
Perfect.
#ad.
Yeah.
#sponsored by #Magic Puzzle Quest.
#sponsored. # that hockey money, though.
Yeah. But That ends another episode of Magic Mike's. Aaron, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Ruben, thank you very much for hanging out.
Thank you.
You guys are terrific. We're going to go over here to our final slide. As that completes another episode, we thank you for joining us here to discuss all things Magic. I want to thank my co-hosts, Aaron and Ruben, you guys for watching, our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, and hope you support us at patreon.com/magicmikes. Visit our website at magicmikespodcast.com that exists thanks to our Patreon supporters, or follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe, do all the social things that tell people that we exist. Catch us online at twitch.tv/magicmikes, on Twitter at magicmikescast, on Reddit at reddit.com/r/magicmikes, and on Facebook at facebook.com/magicmikes. Talk to us privately at magicmikespodcast@gmail.com. Follow the audio-only podcast at magicmikespodcast.libsyn.com, or find us on iTunes, or join us here next week. Same time, same place, for another episode of Magic Mikes. Good night, everybody.